So I started on this journey of researching kidnappings in different countries. The stories, the situations, and the reasons people get kidnapped is a rabbit hole I don't advise you going down. The definition of kidnapping is this: the action of abducting someone and holding them captive. People get kidnapped hundreds of times a day around the world, and it's something that's increased in frequency over the last 3 decades. The numbers keep climbing so much so that most countries have stopped reporting the numbers. Some stopped way back in the early 2000s. So as you can imagine, that made it kind of hard to do serious research on the subject. Different organizations have different studies, and they've all done research, and they all have different numbers. Number 2 on this list showed up in every single one of the studies that I read, and one study said that about 2,000 people get abducted every year or kidnapped from this country. Another one said it was around 6,000, and another one said it was about 14,000. And that's not a one-off, that's how they were with just about every country. So I decided that today's video is just going off what the US State Department says. 9 of these countries are what the Department of State considers level 4 most dangerous, and they carry the nice little warning of do not travel. And they're all known for a high rate of kidnappings. One on this list is only at level 2, but they've got a serious kidnapping problem right now. And the State Department warns about that. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Haiti. Haiti isn't much for political stability. They never have been. It's not how they roll. Haiti takes up about 30% of the island of Hispaniola. The other side is the Dominican Republic. And this island is thought to have been inhabited since about 5000 BC by different groups of Native Americans that arrived from Central and South America. There's always been some kind of turmoil, and they've had independence and they haven't. Back from 1492 to 1625, the Spanish ruled them, then the French were there, then they had a Haitian Revolution, then they were occupied by the United States for almost 20 years, and that's when the fun began. Things started getting crazy sometime after the United States left. Matter of fact, at one point, in 1 year, they had 4 different presidents. And then they finally got a guy named Papa Doc, and Papa Doc decided after he got in office, he would be president for life. Here's the thing, he was the president for life. His life, which ended in 1971, and then his son took over, who they called Baby Doc. It is estimated that during the time that the father and son duo ran Haiti, 40 to 60,000 Haitians were killed by the government. Over the years, they've had a lot of chaos and turmoil, and they actually had a really bad earthquake in 2010, which kind of made the place a little more lawless than it already was. Different organizations have kind of joined forces to try and get Haiti under control, including the United States. In 2010, after the earthquake, the New York City Police Department sent a team of veteran officers to Haiti to assist in rebuilding their police force. They gave them specialized training in investigation techniques and strategies to improve their anti-kidnapping personnel. It was so bad they had to send cops from New York to teach them how to save their people from getting kidnapped. Here in 2022, it's still bad, and it's number 10 on this list. Number 9, Brazil. Brazil's had a problem with kidnappings for a very long time. They have different types of kidnapping, and the one that's most popular in Brazil is called express kidnapping. This is one where they abduct you and then demand a certain amount of money for your release. Usually a small amount just to get the process over and done with. Make enough cash, but not so much that someone would want to get the authorities involved. Usually it happens with abducting someone off the street, forcing them to take money out of their ATM machine, or calling a family member and forcing them to take money out and bring it to them. One that's really popular in Brazil is cab drivers that are working with a gang or a group of people. They'll pick up someone, they'll drive them to a spot, and when they get to that spot, let's say it's a stop sign or something like that, there are people waiting there for them, and they'll get in on each side of the cab, and the person's stuck between them, and they've been kidnapped. Brazil's a beautiful country with amazing people. You just got to be very aware of where you're going. The State Department suggests you reconsider traveling here. Number 8, Iraq. Iraq's had a problem with this long before any of the wars started there. During the times of Saddam Hussein, they had one type of kidnapping that was very popular. It's called enforced disappearance. This is a secret abduction and imprisonment of a person by the state or political organization. Saddam Hussein and his people were really big on this one. People used to get snatched off the street on a regular basis. Then after the wars and these days, it's different militia or terrorist groups that are doing it to civilians or members of other groups. Different organizations have different opinions on what's going on in Iraq, but most of them agree that this happens quite a few times a day in Iraq. Number 7, Libya. This one is sort of a way of life for them. They've had a few different types of kidnappings over the years. They had the enforced disappearances and political kidnappings when Muammar Gaddafi was in charge of that shit show. And these days they have their fair share of express kidnappings. But with Gaddafi gone, the enforced disappearances haven't changed. It's just being done by several groups nowadays instead of just the government. The State Department has Libya as a level 4 most dangerous and gives the warning of do not travel. Number 6, Mali. Mali is actually officially known as the Republic of Mali, and it's a landlocked country in West Africa. Mali is the 8th largest country in Africa with an area of over 1.2 million square miles. They have a population of just over 22 million residents. And here's a strange fact, about 67% of the population is under the age of 25. Now that number comes from 2019. I doubt that it's changed much since then. Here's the thing, do not travel to Mali. They've got high crime, terrorism, and a ton of kidnappings. On July 29th, 2022, the State Department ordered the departure of non-emergency U.S. government employees and family members due to the high risk of terrorist attacks and the kidnappings of Westerners. It's not a safe place to be. And it's not just the Americans and the Westerners getting abducted here. They still do bride kidnappings here, or it's also known as marriage by abduction or marriage by captured. But basically, you get captured and you gotta marry some dude. This is usually done in villages and things like that, but it's going on there. Number 5, Somalia. It's Somalia, so yeah, you know it's gonna have some kind of kidnapping. I mean, they got war, famine, extreme poverty, pirates, shark-infested waters, and one of the most polluted harbors on the planet. If for some insane reason you went to Somalia as a Westerner, you run a pretty good risk of being kidnapped. They're big on kidnap for ransom, and they actually do a form of shanghaiing. They actually force those poor dudes to get on the boats and go attack ships out in the ocean. That's died down a little bit over the last few years, but that was pretty serious for quite a while back around 2015. About the time they started putting security forces, or as I like to call them, mercenaries, on oil tankers and cargo ships, that kind of slowed down. Number 4, Burkina Faso. Staying in Africa, we got Burkina Faso. It is right next to Mali. Burkina Faso is a landlocked country in West Africa with a population of about 20,000 residents. And if you go visit, there's a good chance someone's taking you, especially if you're a woman. They're kind of big on bride kidnapping and impressment, which is sort of like shanghaiing, but in a military sense. Impressment is, or the press as they call it, or press gang, is taking men into military or naval force by compulsion. Basically, they make them join whatever military factions. This country is big on the coup d'etat. They had one in 2022, they had one in 2015, they had one in 1987, they had one in 1983. Kidnapping and government overthrows, that's what they're all about here in Burkina Faso. And getting bit by poisonous snakes. And stop typing. I know they're called venomous snakes. There's a difference. There's poisonous things, but snakes are venomous. Number 3, Mexico. Now earlier I said one of the countries isn't on level 4 according to the State Department. Actually there's 2, Brazil and Mexico. But they both have this problem with kidnapping. Sorry, that's my mistake. Don't kidnap me. In Mexico, they are big on express kidnapping and just straight up ransom kidnapping. This has been going on for quite a while in Mexico. Somewhere around the early 90s, when a lot of the cartels and gangs started coming into power in Mexico, this became a normal way to make money for a lot of them. I guess impressment would be one that fits here too, because they take a lot of people from the villages, young men usually, and make them join the gangs or whatever. In Mexico, it's really hard to figure out exactly how many people are being abducted or kidnapped every single year for a couple reasons. One, fear of the gangs and the cartels. And then the Mexican people have a real fear of police involvement in anything. One country that should have been on this list, or would have been, I should say, around 15 years ago or so, was Colombia. They were really big into this. They're one of the only ones that in the last 15 years have gone downhill, but they kind of flattened out around a decade ago. But Mexico's pretty bad. Number 2, Venezuela. Venezuela, this is another country that's been doing this for quite some time, and it's kind of a business. They have gangs that do this on a regular basis as a source of income for the gang. I mean, every country's got some of that, but this seems to be a big thing in Venezuela. Venezuela is big on enforced disappearances. That's their government. They also have political kidnappings going on there. And one of my favorites, tiger kidnapping. Yes, tiger kidnapping is a thing, and no, it's not absconding with someone's tiger. Tiger kidnapping or tiger robbery involves 2 separate crimes. The first crime usually involves the abduction of any person or thing someone highly values. Instead of demanding money from that person, the captors demand that they commit another crime on their behalf. Basically, we're going to burn your house to the ground or, do something horrible to your family if you don't rob this bank for us. And then these people go out there, they've been told they got to do this or someone's going to die, and they rob banks, and then it turns into this big thing. There was one probably about 20 years ago, which I thought was horrible. They strapped a bomb to a lady and made her go rob a bank, and when the police got involved and everything like that, they just blew her up. What sucks about that one is that was kind of the first one, and then it became a thing, including to some poor pizza man here in the US. The good news is the pair that did that to the pizza man here in the US, they got captured. The pizza man didn't make it. All right, before we get to number 1, don't forget we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link for it below. We'd love it if you went over there and subscribed, watched some videos, share them amongst your friends. Or if you're old enough, just start talking about them to the local grocery clerk. I say old enough because only people over 50 will actually do that. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Yemen. You ever heard of Yemen? Do you know where Yemen is? I'm gonna tell you. And I promise, I'm not making it up. It exists. Yemen sits on the Gulf of Aden, bordered by Saudi Arabia and Oman. It's right across from Djibouti and Somalia. The Gulf of Aden is right at the mouth of the Red Sea and the Arabian Sea where they meet, and it's part of the whole Suez Canal thing. And they've been in a civil war for over 7 years. Roughly 400,000 people have been killed. So as you can imagine, this place is a nightmare. Besides the civil war, there's a good chance you could be kidnapped, especially if you're a Westerner. And they do every kind of kidnapping here. You could be kidnapped and forced to be a soldier. You could be kidnapped and forced to be a wife. You could be held for ransom. You could be a political pawn. I imagine you could be an express kidnapping victim, but not a lot of people there have money, so there'd be no point in that. The only one they really don't have there is gooning. That's one we haven't talked about. There's a type of kidnapping called gooning, like a goon, and it's big in the United States. It's when your parents call one of those camps and they tell them that your kid's on drugs, and so they come and abduct you and take you to one of those camps to get you off drugs. Yeah, that's gooning. They don't have that in Yemen. Because of the civil war and all-around lawlessness, kidnapping is a big thing, along with so many other crimes. It's just a place you want to avoid at all costs. And that's pretty much the advice the State Department gives you about Yemen. Alright, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, and be nice to each other.